Hotep, greeting. Um, so what I want to discuss on this particular video, and getting some emails in regards to this questions, or to these questions, I should say. So I kind of want to address them. And again, as I said, it's kind of hard to answer each individual email. Um, just want to be crystal clear on that, because sometimes you get a bunch in the inbox, and some of them accidentally get skipped. So it's hard to address every single question. So what I try to do is, again, on some of the videos, on some of the emails I get, I'll try to kind of address them as a whole. Before I do that, though, a couple quick announcements, which I like to do in the beginning of the video, so I don't forget. We have an event on October 27th, which is Friday. It's a Friday night, 7:30 p.m. at Cultural Expressions in Hollywood, Florida. It is the ritual of triad and darkness. The ritual that is done to bring harmonization within the black adept, balancing what one would term more intense or darker energy with more passive or lighter spiritual energy, for lack of a better word. One has to learn to facilitate that. You need a combination of both and have to know when, how, and why to utilize them. So that ritual focuses on archetypes that represent those particular energies that reside and are locked within your psyche. So that'll be Friday, October 27th, 7:30 p.m. Well, actually, I think we're going to start it at 6:30 p.m. I'm sorry. It's going to probably start a little bit earlier. The flyer should be done for that within the next couple of days, probably by the weekend coming up. Now, it's very critical, like some rituals we've done in the past. You do have to contact us and put your name on a list for this particular ritual. This is not a ritual you can just show up for. We have to be contacted, have your name on a list, as we did in some other rituals in the past. It's that type of ritual. So if you are interested in getting information on that ritual or attending, and you want to get that flyer or the information sent over to you, you can send us an email at khnum19@gmail.com. Also, if you're interested in a consultation, because I get emails again about consultations, how do they work, etc. So I address it here on the videos in the beginning, so I don't have to respond to that type of email and kind of eliminate the preliminary steps. Real simple consultation, lasts up until 1 hour. It can be done either in person. If you can't get to me in person, it can be done via Google Hangouts, which I prefer to use that method, Skype, email, any type of social media app. And it can be paid for by PayPal or Square, and it is $52 to do that consultation. And in that consultation, we can discuss whatever you choose that you want to discuss, focus on whatever particular topic. You can utilize it as a session if you're just starting out in the path and you want to know, techniques and methods of how to begin. It could be used if you're advanced on the path. It can be used on an advanced topic. Whatever information comes through in that consultation, I'll communicate that, be it archetypes, ancestral, spirits, etc. That information will be conveyed. But for the most part, you pretty much control and dictate the flow and how that consultation goes. So again, it lasts up until 1 hour. It can be paid for via Square or PayPal. And it can be done, if you can't get to me in person, it can be done via Google Hangouts, Skype, or a form of social media app. Prefer Google Hangouts though. And it is $52 to do that consultation. If you're interested in that, all you need to do is email me to set up a date and time for that consultation. I do request that you at least give me 24 to 48 hours, prefer 48, because I go in order as I get these consultations. Same email address, you can contact me at khnum19@gmail.com. All right, so that gets that preliminaries out of the way. So what I want to kind of discuss is, all right, get a lot of these questions progressing on this path, and we talked a little bit about progressing on this path, about getting results, working rituals, what I should and should not do, a term which I don't like, right or wrong, which there's no such thing. The question is, and we addressed this a little bit, we went into this on the radio show this past Thursday night. First and foremost, what you should or should not be doing, as I've said before, is based upon whatever's getting your results. You can't measure that up to any particular criteria. You can't gauge it to something. See, that sometimes tends to be the problem, because people will come into a situation, and specifically this path, and they'll set unrealistic expectations for themselves. Okay? And when you set unrealistic expectations for yourself, it's going to create failure. You're gonna create an energy as if you have not succeeded. It also creates an aspect that things ain't going your way, and you feel like, that this may not be for you. Or you tend to try to figure out, like, I'm working particular rituals, you give it too much thought, and I'm not getting any results. All right, now the question that we always pose on this: consistency is the key. Okay, and I can't stress this enough. You can't do something once or twice. Sometimes you have to stay. You have to stay at it. Somebody will go ahead and do a specific type of spiritual work, and one or two things happen. And I've said this before. Sometimes they get immediate results, and because they've gotten some type of result right away, then they just automatically stop doing it because they think it's finished, it's done. Some people do it once, maybe twice, and don't get any results, and they get frustrated, and they just give up on it. Okay? I keep using the analogy, and this will kind of be the last time I address this question. I keep using the analogy of your car. You have a car. In order for your car to operate at well conditioned, you have to do the maintenance on it, right? You have to do the oil change, you have to rotate the tires, you have to give it a tune up, etc. Whatever maintenance needs to be done to keep the car running at top performance. Well, when you do a spell or you work a ritual, you have to do the maintenance on that spell or ritual. You have to stay on it as need be. Now, if it's every couple days, every week, every other week, whatever you feel the amount of time and energy that is critical to get the result you want. Now, if it's something that needs a lot of work, then something you want to stay at a little bit more consistently. If it's something that doesn't need as much attention, then you don't have to stay at it as long. But your intuition will guide you as far as how often I should and should not do it. So anytime that question is posed, I always ask people, when they say, I did this, I did that, and I'm not getting any results. Excuse me, sorry. And then the first thing I ask people is, well, have you been consistent in your work? And when they stop and look up and go, that answers my question right there. Because if you have, you would immediately just jump in and say that you have. So consistency is the key. Stay consistent at the work you do. If you stay consistent at the work you do, you get the results. Don't get mad and pissed off when the shit don't go your way, or things ain't going the way you want, or you're setting a certain level of expectations. But then what tends to happen is you don't take any responsibility for the failure yourself. You think it's everything around you. And that's usually what happens to people that don't do consistent work. They set a bar of what they expect or what they want, but what tends to happen is when it doesn't just quite pan out that way, then they start finding everything else wrong. Not with themselves, but they'll find everything else around them wrong, but they need to really look within themselves. So that's the answer to that question. What you should and should not do is entirely based on the results. And if you're not getting results, make sure you're staying at that work consistent. Now, a lot of the rituals, now this is key, and this is very important. I want people to understand this. On the left-hand path, there's many different spiritual systems and practices one can use to obtain or work in that path of self-mastery to raise themselves up as a god or a goddess. There's many different methodologies. There's many different spiritual systems you can go into. There's many different things that you can do. What tends to happen is and this is where I think some people get lost. And this is where I think some people kind of, quote unquote, don't cut or make the grade, because when it gets to things that are less tangible, things, that you could touch, things that are physical, this is where some people get lost. The most powerful rituals on this path are when one is exercising their mental power. A lot of the rituals on the Egyptian left-hand path, a lot of the evocations, invocations, and the ceremonies, a lot of them are mental. Mental in the sense of tapping into your subjective realm. And let's review that again real quick. Because when one is able to understand how the subjective and the objective works, then one is able to approach a ritual in a successful mindset. Because what you're basically doing when you go into the ritual, you're tapping into the subjective. So you go into your subjective realm and play that scenario out how you want that scenario to play out. And some can use the term astral travel. You can actually leave the body and put yourself in any situation, scenario that you need to be to gain that outcome. That's how you alter it, and then you bring it into existence on the objective or the physical. This is what we would call a greater black magic working. Now, a lot of this high greater black magic is done in a lot of these Egyptian left-hand path ceremonies, which, again, I'm going to lead into a little bit, not to get into too much of it, the upcoming ceremony on the 27th, which deals with focusing on utilizing both of the light and the dark energies. I'm just going to use that term only in the sense because obviously the darker energies represent a more intense type of energy vibration and frequency, and the lighter energies represent a lesser, a more calming, tranquil, peaceful type of energy. Now remember, we've always said on this path, a black adept is the master at utilizing both of those energies. Some will say, classify some as white magic and black magic. See, both of them are combined on this path. Whereas you have certain spiritual systems, you'll have some, people that we label that practice what we call Wicca or earth magic. They would be considered exclusive people that are practitioners of white magic. And then you have some that are just extremely or only deal with dark magic, or they'll just be into all this intense stuff, etc. But you'll find very few paths that know how to combine both of them. That's where I think the confusion comes in, and where some people get lost on this path because they struggle with working with both of those energies. Either they go to one side more than the other. And this is what we mean when we said in the past, or you've heard me say in the past, some people have come from a religious mind state and a religious background, and they can't shake it when they come in this path because they're still being consumed by those lighter forces. They're still being consumed by those more passive energies and forces. So this in turn creates many different problems for them. You understand? It creates the problem because it starts to reflect in your everyday life. It starts to reflect in your character. It starts to reflect in, the level of success that you achieve. Be it financially, spiritually, etc. It all plays a part and affects it. So the key, again, on this path is being able to utilize both of those energies and knowing how to work with both of those energies. You'll hear a term, we'll say personal demon, or doing demon work, or demonology. You'll hear a term on the Egyptian left-hand path called the Agatha demon, which is the same thing. Now, I bring this up because the whole point of working with archetypes, and this is where people get fucking confused. I'm telling you, I see it all the time. they are not conscious of the fact that they are subconsciously still approaching it from a worship mind state. Your whole point in facilitating and working with these archetypes, or what you might / call deities, is to merge and blend all those energies of them archetypes, just enhance your agathos daemon or your personal daemon, which is your true self. And the whole point of this path is getting connected to your true self. And you hear hence the term true self. It's to shed all the illusions. Stop trying to be or pretending to be what you want people to see you as, because that in itself puts up a shield and a block where you can't evolve into who you really are. We still, you have many that are still on this path, but are still trying to keep this certain image of what they want people to see them as. The change doesn't really come and manifest until you shed all those illusions. You shed all those false things about yourself. And as I've said before, you hear people talk about all the great gifts they have. You hear people talk about all the high level of spirituality they attain, and how they're so gifted and they're special and blah, and and all that, and that's great. But you never hear people say, man, some fucked up shit I gotta correct about myself. I guarantee the person that does that and takes a stock of themselves and can admit what's fucked up about themselves, that's the person that's going to grow a lot quicker, because that, hence is the term on this path, taking your weaknesses and making them strengths. What does it mean to take your weaknesses and making them strengths? By mastering them. Because when you master a weakness, okay, and you overcome it, and you've completely now are in control, or now you're dominating it, okay, you have now conquered something that might have been holding you back. And that something that used to hold you back does not hold you back no more. So you've taken now a weakness, and what gave you the strength was you analyzing the problem, understanding what the problem is, and fixing it, and correcting it, and changing it, and making it work for you, not against you. And the process of mastering that weakness is what brings about great change in the individual. A lot of this shit is mental. Again, yes, there's a lot of physical, ritualistic stuff on this path. There's because like imagery is critical when working rituals, and we talked about that before. But I want to make it clear, black magic isn't just about putting on a ritualistic robe and doing some work at an altar. That's only part of it. And those things are important because they enhance the ritual by way of imagery. But you're going to find a lot of this shit is mental more than anything. When you're able to tap into that aspect of it, for an example, working with archetypes and invoking the consciousness that they represent. It takes a lot of mental discipline to do that. It takes a lot of mind, clearing to do that. And what I mean by mind clearing is, if you come into a lot of this spiritual work and rituals not with a clear head, and you got so much bullshit that you're dealing with, and you're not addressing it, you're only wasting your time and fooling yourself. Because you're trying to work rituals and tap into your subjective realm, but you got so much baggage on your subconscious mind that you have not addressed. And you're not aware of it, but it's creating that block, and this is why you're not growing. Back to what I was saying in the beginning of the video, this is why people don't understand, sometimes, or they get frustrated when things aren't going their way. And you might be doing work in one area, but there's a part of you or there's something going on with you that needs to be addressed that's much more critical. So you may not be getting no results on the particular thing you're doing at the moment, because that's not what's needed. And your true self is focusing and trying to take you away from that and draw you to something you need to give attention to. And a lot of us ignore those signs because we act off of raw impulses. Only thing that we do is we basically, the mind, when it's sometimes, and this is not in a good way, when we desire something, and again, indulgence is part of this path. but you cannot be controlled by your desires. And sometimes you spend so much time and energy chasing a desire, and it may not be pertinent for your growth. But we still chase it anyway. What causes us to do that is the ego, right? We said ego can be utilized on a personal level in a positive way, for, as far as how it affects you, and in a negative way where it's not productive for you. This would be an aspect in a negative way where when one is just completely following the ego that's guiding them down the paths of caving into their desires, then one sets to fail. And again, I want to make this crystal clear. Desires need to be fed to a certain extent. Some people are controlled by their desires because they don't appease them on any level. Be it food, be it sex, whatever. You should experiment. You should appease those desires, because the only way you're going to be able to control them is by a certain level of experience. And look, man, I've seen the sex force ruin a lot of people because they let it control them. And I'm not just talking about people that, quote unquote, are having too much sex. I'm talking about people that have a high sex drive and are not having enough of sex. That's another force of destruction because it consumes them. And sometimes taking on this mentality, even with food, it's the same thing. Taking this mentality where I'm completely just going to discipline myself to completely avoid it. That's even worse. I can't stress how that's even worse, because what it does is keeps building up. That persistence to resist, that resistance keeps being built up. It becomes stronger and stronger, and most people cave into it. And usually what happens, they go way off the deep end, or they just become, everything starts to unravel on all levels. Now, we talked about the path of indulgence many times, on previous videos. That is a part of this path. Most paths don't focus on the physicality of your existence on this planet. And let me give you an example what I mean and why I'm saying that. We're always taught, especially in these right-hand path philosophies or these very fluffy, light-sider paths, the world is always, anything worldly is always looked at as a negative. Money, like for an example, the biggest bullshit, the quote in the Bible that says money is the root of all evil, right? Not if you know how to utilize it, okay? But if you let it consume you and control you, and that's the only thing, that you are obsessed with, or that you will go to the length to do foul shit for, then it takes it to a whole another level. But money is not the root of all evil. Most of these paths, they don't. If any type of worldly pleasure and joy in most paths is always presented as something negative, and there's always these mentalities that are promoted to be humble and poor and have nothing, but as long as you're doing what you're doing, there's some special place waiting for you. That's a bunch of bullshit. You should indulge in the desires of this world. You should experience the desires of this world if that's what you feel you need. You should not completely suppress them. Now, again, back to the sex thing. If you have a high sex drive, I'm not saying go fuck anybody that you bump into, but you better create a scenario where that's being fulfilled. Find you the right partner or partners that can handle that for you. Most people don't look at that in that light. They look at that as being something that sounds crazy, or that's not right. Not right based on what? On religious dogma? Because even in biblical culture, I don't know where they get this, monogamous marriage and relationship come from. Because as I've said before, all the prophets in the Bible were straight pimps. They had multiple wives, multiple children. Solomon, one of the greatest so-called men according to religious dogma, who was so highly favored by God, had concubines of women, had was probably one of the greatest pimps of all time. and he was one of the most favorable people in God's eyes. Okay, so where does this monogamy bullshit come from? This is something that Western society promotes, and as I said before, look, it's a touchy go feel subject. It's not in most people's nature, especially men. It's not in their nature. And again, I'm not saying any of this shit to justify, again, not just going off the deep end and having no discipline. This has to be addressed within reason, and this is one of the few paths that deal with the doctrine of indulgence, because to indulgence, having root in the word to indulge, the only way you're going to experience and master something is by indulging in it on a certain level. So we tend to suppress our desires, and then our desires overcome us and they control us, and we get consumed by them, which leads us to start doing stupid shit that we shouldn't do because we have no control over it. Okay? So this is important. All of these processes everything that we're talking about kind of all ties in a sense. This is how you get yourself in harmony with those, quote unquote, lighter and darker energies or forces, for lack of a better word, or archetypes or deities or aspects of your psyche. When you're working with them in harmony on all levels, this is when change starts to come about. So, which leads me to the critical point, okay? When you're working and dealing with them on all levels, not just focused, because here, most people tend to gravitate towards shit that they like. And just because you like something doesn't mean that it could be good for you. It might be something that's stunning your growth. Just because you like it, it just may not be right for you. And I've watched people stay stuck in shit because they either like it or they think it's for them, but they never really truly found out for sure, connected it. And when you're not working in harmony with these light and darkness, okay, if you want to use that term, if you're not working in harmony with light and darkness, this is why you don't get the results, because there's that imbalancement in you, or a lack of harmony, for a better word. Usually when stuff goes wrong, and even when most people get sick, if they get flus and viruses and things of that nature, there's a disconnect from the physical and the spiritual, and some people just tend to get sick all the time. And there's really no explanation for it. And they go to the doctor and they get prescriptions and they get medications, and synthetics makes it actually worse. It does not help it. This all are the reasons and the explanations why people feel like they're not getting results. Because they're not working in harmony with all aspects of these energies. Now, you heard me mention a multitude of times on this show. A ton of times I've mentioned, Look, when you put all of these things into perspective, right? Analyze yourself. Okay? I've said several times to the result thing. If you've been doing something for so many years, right? And you really can't see, and I'm talking about real, clear-cut, dramatic change, then what you're doing is not working for you. And sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow for some people, because they've been at something for so long and so many years, or they've been loyal to it, and they struggle with giving it up. To stay with it's going to suit what purpose? It doesn't suit any purpose at all. So why are we staying with it? Right? Because when most people come and say something is going wrong, they don't want to do a stock of self. What do I mean by stock of self? What decisions have you made recently? What circles do you run in? What type of people you keep around you? All of this stuff is going to affect your level of success and working your rituals. because it shapes the mindset and the psyche, consciously and unconsciously. Okay? That's where people wrestle, because as you progress on this path and find a lot of the rituals you're going to start to really deal with the power of mind, is where people fall the fuck off. Trust me when I tell you, they fall off. Because they can't tap in to the psyche of the mind, because there's too many external distractions that are controlling them or overcome by. A lot of the rituals we do, now, yeah, I mean, there's some physical part to some of the rituals we do, but the key rituals or the higher rituals really deal with, tapping into the power of your mind or your subjective realm. Because going into the subjective realm and altering things and adjusting things of how you want them to manifest on the objective realm, that's the whole key of what this path is about. And I'm gonna say this shit and I'll say it again. You're not gonna find everything in the book. Okay? I'm not talking about, we're not talking about history. We're not talking about everything that you think in your mind can be explained. Yeah, there's science and there's math and there's history. But then there's you, who should be the god and goddess or controller and ruler of your universe. And when you're working and tapping into your subjective realm, how that process works per se, you're not going to find everything in a book. That's some other people's problem that claim to be conscious because they need to, it's like they got to have or connect it to somewhere in some book in some shape, form, or fashion. And that's a bunch of bullshit too, because I said before, not everything is in a book. And if you're getting results, you're not obligated to have to prove to people that what you do is right. As long as you know you're getting results and you've proved it to yourself, that's key. Because you know what? Not everybody is going to agree with what you do, and that's okay too. It's that simple. But we get, in this day and time, you see people fussing and fighting and getting in debates over nonsensical religious or historical bullshit that at the end of the day isn't going to do anything for us in 2017. So that's the key. But anyway, I didn't want to keep this one too long. I kind of wanted to touch on that because I know a lot of y'all have sent emails on recent things we've discussed on the radio show or stuff that you heard me talk about here on the YouTube channel, or some of this stuff comes up at the rituals, and that's the answer. As far as getting results, the key is simple: being able to harmonize with the light and the dark forces, or the dark energies, knowing how to vibrate at the correct frequency. That's key. Along with consistency, you'll see you will get great results. And the last thing, and this is very important. Man, I can't stress how important this is. Being in control of your emotions. If you're not in control of your emotions, if you let anger, greed, jealousy, all of those things consume you, you'll be unsuccessful on this path. Now, me, myself, I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for anybody else. It's a process getting there, don't get me wrong, because, as I've said before in the past, years ago, one thing I had to learn to control and discipline was my anger and my temper. And I've now learned to let that work for me. I've learned to utilize that energy and put that drive and energy in a whole nother area. I'm not concerned with bullshit. I don't even waste my time in dealing with it. And anyone on this path should not be dealing with bullshit or other people's drama or whatever it is, or family drama. It's just, or just any stupidity that is not productive. That's one of the hardest things to master for most people on this path. Again, as I say, I can only speak for myself. I'm at a point where I don't waste my time and energy with any of that shit no more. And the key is being able to put yourself in a position. And it's not saying you're not going to deal with bullshit. That's not what I'm saying, because there's always going to be some bullshit you're dealing with. What I'm saying is, don't get caught up in the bullshit where the bullshit consumes and controls you. So all of these things are what this path is about, assisting you getting right about yourself and mastering it. And that's why we say it's a path of self-mastery, because one must master themselves to really understand who and what God is. It's that simple. You'll never understand who and what God is, or goddess, whatever you want to say, until you truly master yourself. How do you master yourself? By correcting the shit about yourself that's fucked up. It's that simple, man. That's simple. So I hope this helps in that area topic for those that send emails on that. And again, if you are looking to attend that event on the 27th, or you are interested in doing a consultation with me, you can hit me up at that email, khnum19@gmail.com. Peace.